A very good afternoon to you, and I hope that your day has started off well and is going on well. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in from. The show is Diaspora Dispatches. We get to bring you the latest news from across the continent. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and we start this bulletin this afternoon from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And fresh fighting broke out on Wednesday in eastern DRC, days after rebels had declared a unilateral ceasefire to make way for talks with the government. In the last few days, about 6,000 refugees who had returned home in the DRC have fled back to neighboring Uganda. Sources say government forces are fighting to retake villages in Butchuru area in North Kivu province that are currently occupied by the M23 rebels. Residents of the border town of Bunagana told the BBC that they could hear heavy weapons in the distance. Regional leaders were expected to meet this week over negotiations between the government and the rebels. The M23 say that they want a peace agreement that was signed over a decade ago to be honored. The agreement provided by M23 to operate as a political party, stopping alleged discrimination of Congolese ethnic Tutsi in the armed forces, and the return of refugees to their country, among the issues. And we go to Somalia. And the Al-Qaeda-allied Al-SHABAB militant group has dismissed reports that it was planning an attack against the Somali president and the prime minister. Pro-Al-SHABAB Somali memo website quoted an unnamed senior Al-SHABAB commander who termed the claim by the Somalia National Intelligence and Security Agency NISA laughable. The Shabab commander said NISA was not capable of earthing the group's operations. The militants claimed that the statement from the spy agency indicates an imminent threat against some officials because of political disputes. And I'll just quote what they said. Although the leaders and the officials of the apostate Somali government are always our target, we will not allow them to involve us in their disputes. The jihadist commander was quoted as saying. The group also denied the existence of senior Al-Shabaab operative named Mohammed Maher, who Nisa said was leading the alleged attack plot. Somalia's security situation continues to be jeopardized by political wrangles over its delayed elections. And then we go to Ethiopia, where two human rights groups have accused armed forces from the Ethiopian Amhara region of waging a campaign of ethnic cleansing against Tigrayans. In a joint report, Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch accused Amhara officials and regional special forces and militias fighting in western Tigray of committing war crimes and crimes against humanity. They also accused Ethiopia's military of complicity in other acts. The rights organizations have spent over a year interviewing more than 400 people and using satellite imagery to gather evidence from the region, which has been extremely difficult for journalists, aid groups and others to access. The groups say that hundreds of Tigrayans remain unlawfully detained and have called for their immediate release. In a letter to organizations, the Amhara regional government called the allegations the report released. In a letter to the organization, the Amhara regional government called the allegations in the report false. I apologize for that. And then we head over to Ghana, where authorities in the country say they have increased the security alert levels in the country to counter possible attacks. National Security Minister Albert Kandapa warned MPs that separatists in southeastern Ghana could be planning a new wave of attacks in the region as part of their campaign for a breakaway state of western Togoland. The authorities also fear ethnic tensions in northern Ghana could be exploited by armed groups to perpetrate violence, and there are concerns that militants could cross over from neighboring Burkina Faso. Their armed groups are linked to the so-called Islamic State, and Al-Qaeda have recently stepped up attacks. Mr. Kandapa told MPs that the country must be proactive in the wake of rising insecurity in West Africa and said security agencies have been adequately equipped to combat any threats, including beefing up security measures along the country's border with Burkina Faso. And then we go to Nigeria, and the Nigerian military is yet to comment on reports that several soldiers were killed and others wounded when their field base in trouble, not Niger but Nigerian. Sorry, I apologize for that. Let me take that one more time. The Nigerian military is yet to comment on reports that several soldiers were killed and others wounded when their field base in the troubled Kaduna state reportedly came under attack on Sunday. Armed bandits came on motorbikes armed with heavy weapons. They took the soldier on duty by shooting and killing 10 soldiers. That is according to a witness who told the BBC. The attackers are also said to have set fire to the military vehicle and stolen some weapons from the base in Palwaya near Birnin Gwari town. There are also reports that a number of civilians who ran into the crossfire died. Two military authorities have not confirmed eyewitness report that a senior military officer visited the scene of the incident on Monday afternoon and evacuated the bodies of the dead while those wounded were taken to the hospital. And then we go to Sudan. An ICC chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, says at a press in The Hague that he wants to close the situation in Darfur when asked whether former Sudan President Omar al-Bashir will likely soon be in court. A former Sudanese militia chief oversaw murder, rape and torture across Darfur, the International Criminal Court had on Tuesday as the first trial for war crimes in the region got underway. Ali Mohammed Ali Abdirahman, an ally of deposed Sudan strongman Omar al-Bashir, faces 31 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity for his role in the conflict almost 20 years ago. His trial is the first being heard at the Hague-based ICC for crimes in Darfur, in which 300,000 people were killed and 2.5 million others fled their homes, and that is according to the United Nations figures. Fighting broke in Darfur when black African rebels complaining of systematic discrimination took up arms against Bashir's Arab-dominated regime. Khartoum responded by unleashing the Janjaweed, a force drawn from among the region's nomadic tribes. A rights group described it as a deliberate campaign of ethnic cleansing targeting the Far, Masalit and Zangawa ethnic groups. And then we go to South Sudan, and President Salva Kiir has launched a nationwide public consultations for the establishment of the Commission for Truth, Reconciliation and Healing. Chapter 5, Article 2 obligates the Ministry of Justice, in collaboration with stakeholders and civil society, to conduct public consultations for a period not less than 1 month prior to the establishment of the Commission. It adds that the consultation shall ensure the experiences of women, men, girls and boys are sufficiently documented and findings of the consultation incorporated in the results and legislation. The Commission for Truth, Reconciliation and Healing shall also recommend processes and mechanisms for the full enjoyment by victims of the right of remedy, including by suggesting measures for repatriation and compensation. In his address during the launch, President Salva Kiir said that the consultation must reflect the views of the victims to achieve genuine reconciliation. And then we conclude by going back to Burkina Faso, and this is the latest news from there. And former President Blaise Compaoré was sentenced in absentia in prison over former President Thomas Sankara's murder on Wednesday. The verdict comes 6 months after the trial of 14 men accused in the assassination of Burkina Faso's first president, and after 6 months of hearing marked by suspensions and political twists and turns, the verdict is expected in the trial of the alleged killers of former President Thomas Sankara, who was killed in 1987. The landmark trial opened in October 2021, 34 years after Sankara was killed in a coup that brought Blaise Compaoré to power. Compaoré, the main accused, has been in exile in Abidjan since his fall in 2014 and did not attend the hearings. 30 years in prison have been requested against Blaise Compaoré by the military court of Ouagadougou for attack on state security, complicity in murder and concealing a corpse. Blaise Compaoré is suspected of being the mastermind of the assassination of his former friend and comrade in arms, which he always denied. A dozen other defendants attended his lengthy trial, including General Gilbert Diendere, a former army chief who is already serving a prison sentence. Thomas Sankara, who came to power in a coup in 83, was killed with 12 of his companions by a military commando at the age of 37. And of course, the death of this Pan-African icon who wanted to decolonize mentalities and upset the world order by defending the poor and oppressed in Burkina Faso was a taboo subject during Blaise Compaore's 27 years in power. And of course, Sankara trial, and now that marks, I think, the end of that trial. I'm surprised by how short that trial was. Perhaps maybe the facts were not too much. I mean, a lot of this is something that has been on the matter of public knowledge, and so it was just a matter of time. The hearing started last year, and by the way, that is the end of our bulletin this afternoon. I don't think I have another news item, and I will not get into the details of the relationship of Blaise Compaore, who was a very close confidant, a friend even, to the late president, Thomas Sankara, and they were very close, and it is said that he was used to take out his friend Blaise Compaore, who became president after that. He became president and he ruled for 27 years. And I don't know why France is not on trial. I don't know why Belgium is not on trial, because when you go and do your research and read widely, then you will see that even taking out of and the killing of Sankara had really nothing to do with Blaise wanting to be the president, but it had everything to do with the interest that he was representing, when he was being installed a president. So those interests and the people behind this interest, I think that is where the main conversation should be. Charles Muunga, thank you so much for joining this afternoon. Your presence is much appreciated. But I'm just saying, as much as, yes, Blaise Compaore was the beneficiary of this coup and this murder of Thomas Sankara, but that is not the main problem, the main issue. The main issue is who wanted Thomas Sankara dead. And I think that is where we should be pointing our fingers. And as long as we keep going around some of these problems that we see plague this continent, and the real culprits get away with heinous acts. Because I think in this regard, as much as Blaise Compaore has gotten the sentence that he has gotten, still there are people who needs to be answerable. There are people who needs to be held accountable to the murder. The people whose interest Blaise Compaore represented by having installed him the president in Burkina Faso for 27 years. You could not even mention the name of Thomas Sankara when Blaise Compaore was in power. And of course, he was removed in a coup in 2014 after having served for 27 years. And right now he is in Abidjan. That is where he is today. He sought asylum there. So I think it's an important step towards finding maybe closure for the family, towards finding justice. But it should not end there. I think that this should go further. These investigations should go further. And Blaise Compaore, he's an easy target, obviously. He benefited after the death of Thomas Sankara, but there were forces behind the death of Thomas Sankara, and it is a matter of public knowledge. It is a matter of public knowledge that, allegedly, let me just put that word there, France and Belgium had interest. And when Thomas Sankara, he was a great Pan-African, and he was urging his people, we don't have to depend on the West, because we know Burkina Faso is a former colony of France. We don't have to depend on the West or our former colonists for us to be and to build our country. So he was urging his people, and you could see the earlier photos, very young man. He died very young. And when you look at some history and some documentaries, you'll even feel sad, the manner in which he was even buried. His tomb, or rather his burial site, is just another person buried. You wouldn't even tell that it is, a burial site for a very important, a person who has quite a significance as far as Burkina Faso's history is concerned. He's a former head of state, for heaven's sake. So This needs to go further. Holding Blaise Compaoré responsible, that's one step. But let's go further and see what's really happening. So as I was saying, Sankara was encouraging his people, the Burkinabes, to work hard, to be self-sufficient, to depend on themselves, to get what it is they wanted for their country by working hard. And he showed that, in deeds. You could see him doing things, cleaning up, digging and stuff with the people, because he believed that if you want to people to do whatever it is that you want them to do, then you have to lead from the front. So he was that kind of a leader. And this ideology of Pan-Africanism and self-reliance, that is something that did not augur well with countries like France and Belgium, whose economies have been built on the backs of a lot of African economies. So they did not like that. So they felt, Thomas Sankara was a threat to their own interests and did not sit very well with their foreign policies, especially when it comes to Africa and specifically France and its former colonies here in the continent. The history is complicated and sad. You can go Google that and find the information. So that was the main reason why Sankara was dead. And when you read through, you watch those documentaries and you really get into the details of it. Blaise Compaoré is just a very small fraction of what was wrong with Burkina Faso then and what is wrong with Burkina Faso today, because the interest that, took out Thomas Sankara are still the same interest that we see now. President of Burkina Faso was disposed, I think, in January. Yes, I'm forgetting his name, but he was removed also through a coup. So it has been a very tumultuous, times there in Burkina Faso. So this is a good step, and like I said, this trial went on really quick. It started last year, opened last year in October, and today they've made that. That ruling that former President Blaise Compaoré is, has been sentenced to life. Of course, he's not in Burkina Faso. He's in Abidjan. He went there he took his asylum there. But it's a good step, but this is not enough. This is still cover-up. This does not bring the real justice to the perpetrators of the death of Thomas Sankara. More needs to be done, and the real people behind his death needs to be held accountable if real justice is to be gotten there. That is his, yes, as you can see on the screen there, that is where President Thomas Sankara was buried. But funny, now it's even much better now. Initially, it was just a place where you could just walk by and not even know that a former president was buried there. And I think Blaise Compaoré tried to really wish away the memories of Thomas Sankara and his name. He really tried during his 27 years in power to get rid of that, to remove that from public knowledge. But I think the small stint that Thomas Sankara held as the president and what he was able to do within that short period transformed the lives and changed the history and the course of Burkina Faso. So it was very difficult for Compaoré to get rid of that. But he really tried. Even, he never honored this man. He never did. And the manner in which he even handled his family. You can tell he really was trying to get rid of that. But all right, so I don't know if Abidjan will agree to bringing back so that he can serve his term. I doubt they will do that. But let's wait and see how that will turn out. And of course, so the issue in South Sudan, and I know we talk about South Sudan a lot, that is because there's always something happening in South Sudan. So I see President Salva Kiir now has launched a national-wide public consultations for the establishment of the Commission for Truth and Reconciliation and Healing. And I think this is what we've been talking about here. If you watch us, we've been quite consistent when it comes to the matter of South Sudan. You can't just have a country where so much has happened, a lot of atrocities have happened, and a lot of things have been committed against the people of South Sudan. And then the people who have committed these atrocities are still some of them in power. We are looking at South Sudan after it became a country independent in 2011, and then in 2013 plunged into a civil war that has continued. Well, there is some relative peace and stability, but not really. Not really. There's still, South Sudan is still not that stable because there has been an increase in communal fightings and fightings and bickering from the security forces and all that. So it's still not stable. But my point is, the way even the peace agreement and the way was fashioned, and some of the very important articles that we see now, that was, the Chapter 5 of the Revitalized Peace Agreement that called for people to be held accountable, and that part was lacking, and that is something that we've been talking about here consistently. You can't find peace, you can't find stability, you can't find forgiveness if you do not go to the root cause of what is even causing these problems, and get to hear what people went through. Get to hear what South Sudanese are going through even right now in those refugee camps. Get to hear how these women have been raped, and the girls, by the army officials, because after they go and fight their opponents and they feel as if they won the war over there, they come and reward themselves by raping women and girls. Go check out those reports. They have been presented to the United Nations Security Council. This is atrocities, acts against human rights that have been happening in South Sudan. And then all of a sudden, you just sit down and hope that things will work out, everybody will forgive each other, and they will have a very wonderful, big, happy country with happy people. It doesn't work like that unless the structures of true reconciliation are put in place. And part of that is for people to heal. Then truth has to be spoken out. For people to reconcile, then people have to come out and say, you know what, I did that. And that is how Rwanda was able to truly heal and move forward as a country. And South Sudan really needs that. So when I was going through this news, I said, okay, so maybe they have been listening, because I think Dr. Matsanga has been calling on this. He's been saying you can't have, there has to be some accountability. There has to be some accountability, and accountability has been lacking in the whole system of South Sudan. That's why government officials just act with impunity. And that's why everybody in South Sudan, the stakeholders, they just act with impunity, because it is so fragile that whatever they do, the other side of, they're almost scared of holding them accountable, because that might jeopardize, the peace process. So people have just been doing whatever they want in that country. And now President Salva Kiir has launched a nationwide public consultations for the establishment of the Commission for Truth, Reconciliation and Healing. Chapter 5, Article 2 obligates the Ministry of Justice in collaboration with stakeholders and civil society to conduct public consultations for a period not less than 1 month prior to the establishment of the Commission. So they're trying to get people's ideas and stakeholders and civil society and everybody else, and perhaps they're trying to get ways and how this truth, reconciliation and healing has to take place. And if this has to be and be done, then it has to be based on truth. It has to be based on honesty. It has to be based on the ugly facts of the whole thing. They have to look at, they have to hear, they have to be open to the ugly truth about what has happened in South Sudan. And then after that, then you can treat that wound, and then you can hope it heals with time, and then you can move on. But if they come here and they just want to put bandage on wounds, and they just want to gloss over issues, that still will not work. So this truth and reconciliation and healing, I hope it doesn't become like that one in Cameroon that President Paul Biya, organized by himself. Remember the national reconciliation talks that was just between the government and the government itself, because the Anglophones were not really brought to the table properly. The leadership was not represented adequately. And so even whatever that was decided on that, has never been implemented, because, the government was not really open to real change. So in this case of South Sudan, we can't gloss over issues. We can't just hope that we just meet, waste time, and do all that circus that we see happen there, and then hope that the country will move forward. There has to be some deep level of reflection as a country, and they must address those issues and then reconcile with where they are today, so that they're able to move forward as a country. Otherwise, that might not be very successful, and it urges that consultation shall ensure that experiences of women and men and girls and boys, remember the child soldiers who were forced to war, to go kill and maim and all that, those kids are still traumatized, all right? So everybody needs to be included, be it men, women, girls, everybody, young boys, everybody needs to be brought on table and sufficiently document the findings of the consultation incorporated in the resultant legislation. Now, the Commission for the Truth, Reconciliation and Healing shall also recommend processes and mechanisms for the full employment by victims of the right of remedy, including by suggesting measures of repatriation and compensation. Okay. Maybe a very important factor before they even go out to collect this, to collect this information from the people who, and document from the people who have been affected and who will have something to say, the people of South Sudan. I want to know, because I think this is where the problem will come from, who will constitute this Truth, Reconciliation and Healing Committee? Who will be part of it? Because, fighting for positions and disagreement over positions has been something that has been dragging South Sudan behind. Sometimes they make steps forward, and then when it comes to a distribution of positions or whatever it is that has to do with positions, then it sort of brings chaos to the whole thing. So I want to know, while you're constituting this Truth and Reconciliation and Healing Commission or committee, whatever it is you're calling it, President Salva Kiir, who will constitute it? Who are the people? Where will they be drawn from? I think that is something very important. And with South Sudan, all stakeholders must agree. Otherwise, there's going to be a tag of a push and pull every now and then, like we've seen in that Security Council, where SPLM-IO walked out because they were saying their security forces are being targeted on their cantonment sites. And so that has brought some delay, but I think they agreed to come back, which is a good thing. So in this Commission for Truth, Reconciliation and Healing, I think the component and the people that will be selected to be on it, that will be the basis of a successful process or not. That will be very important. You have to look for people in that committee that are concerned for the lives and the people of South Sudan. You have to look at people who will be consisted in that committee, that are selfless, that are not egocentric, like we've seen with a lot of leaders in South Sudan, that have no interest, and their only interest is to see that the people of South Sudan get the healing, get the, the justice that they deserve, and the country of South Sudan gets that too. Those are the kind of people we want to see in that. So, but if you bring other people who have other motives, representing other interests, then that is already a basis for disaster. So I've not seen the names of the people who have been named in this commission. I'll go look for them. And hopefully these are people that, both sides, all the stakeholders included, will be comfortable having, because that is also important. You don't want to have people who another side will be feeling, no, this person will be coming for our people, this person is against us, or this person does not mean well for us, or whatever it is. So we have to look for people who are neutral, and people whose only interest is for the people and the country of South Sudan. That's the number one interest. So those are the kinds of people we need in this Truth and Reconciliation and Healing. Otherwise, if you get any other person outside of that, like we've seen with the rest of the leadership in South Sudan, then this commission might just be another merry-go-round and just another commission or committee formed in South Sudan. But I think this is a very great step here by the government of President Salva Kiir. And so I'm just hoping that this is done very, very fast. Remember, this was just part of the agenda of the peace agreement of 2018. I see they're working on the security, and I think they're supposed to be unified. They're supposed to form a unified force. Was it by the end of this I'll check, but that is in the process. And now this, I think the key and very important aspects of the revitalized peace agreement finally are being implemented slowly but surely. So whatever progress is being made, it might not be at the pace that perhaps the rest of the world was hoping it will be, but I'm glad that there is some semblance of movement and progress nevertheless. And I think that sometimes let's just keep pushing them, but in a good way, so that they're able really to do some of these things, because it is important. It is important for the people and the country of South Sudan. I thank you so much for watching this afternoon. My time is up. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Miriam Ogut. It has been a pleasure. I'll see you here tomorrow again, good willing. Bye-bye for now.